Welcome back to Cougar Chronicle. And the problem is that we giggle so much in the breaks.
We have
come
a lot
back.
of, well,
It's so
we
much
do-
joy here.
Well, but here we do a Monday mindset with the SEU. Every Monday morning at 8:07 we meet as a SEU team.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And the joke is why 8:07? Well, you got to show up at 8:07 to find out why 8:07. But it's a
there we go.
5-minute meeting every Monday.
Okay.
And it basically just sets the stage for the week. Sometimes when the things are going to be tough, it's a chance to give affirmations to people that have helped
Gotcha.
us. But it's just to make our offices up here at the SAU, it's easy to get isolated. So
It is,
we want to make
yes.
sure we're not siloed and we connect. And one of the quotes, I typically use some kind of silly quote every week, shocker. But one of those is if we can laugh together,
Oh,
we
here
can
go.
work together.
That's true. It's very
so
true. It
we
really
talk
is.
about that, and it's reached a point where I have folks that come up and like, "Are you okay?" And like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "I have not heard you laugh today." So people are tuned in
Interesting.
to that, and so
Yes.
it's as we get that. But that just tells you about the connection we have. So
Right,
so
right.
laughter is that medicine.
Exactly,
And then
exactly.
I always, the had a pin when I was growing up said, "Smile, people wonder what you're up to."
That's and it
But
is
anyway, I digress. So we've got one of my favorite. We have such great conversations.
Oh,
but I would say
best
I love
conversations.
this segment every
I do
episode,
too.
which is
I do too.
with our assistant superintendent,
Hi.
Michael Bessette. Just the amount of knowledge and the great
Yes.
conversations. And I think what's fun for me is this: is we have these conversations almost all the time. I mean, it's
Gotcha.
daily. We're
Yeah.
digging into everything, and
Right.
challenging each other, and sometimes
that.
our best conversations is we're traveling to a school for a meeting. But these are the fun conversations. So to bring some of this stuff forward,
Right.
is that and it's the what are we going to talk about? When did we talk about this? How do we want to message all that stuff
Well,
out? So
all I know is that you said this is going to be an old school, new school discussion. You looked at me and said, "Old school?"
I don't remember.
New school.
I may have nodded at you, but I don't remember pointing at you. So as we look at that, but I think this is just a great kind of piece. So I don't want to take too much out of it. I want to tee it up for Mr. Bessette. So I'll let you kind of lead into.
And you
to
had
this whole thing.
props.
So
He's got props.
I
this
do
time.
have props. I actually, I was sitting down last night and I was just kind of relaxing and thinking about today's segment and what I wanted to talk about with you. I happened to come across this email that was this description by a professor named John Spencer, who writes about this topic in education called problem-based learning, right? And he actually kind of drew us back to I think it was 65. Now it's just a little before my birthday, but just a couple of years in there. But in 65, they apparently built the Astrodome, and what he was talking about was how the Astrodome was supposed to be the eighth wonder of the world. It was going to be this
Right.
incredible complex for baseball. And what he was trying to do is to make a point that when the Astrodome was brought to bear on the sports world, it turned out to be a disaster in many ways, because what they were doing is they were purely moving future forward. They were looking at bringing this facility to the world of baseball. And so they built this facility, and it had this clear kind of sky. It didn't take but maybe 30 seconds for them to figure out when the first fly ball went up on a sunny day that they couldn't see anything through the glass. So then they had to paint the glass in the
There we
Astrodome,
go.
right?
Right.
And the Astrodome had real grass in it, right? As soon as you paint the glass black, the grass
The
dies,
grass
right?
doesn't live.
So, all these problems
Secondary
arose
problem.
out of
Yeah,
good
right.
intentions,
Yeah.
right? And what he was doing is he was making the analogy to AI, which was very interesting to me, about how AI gets played out in our classrooms. And when
Right.
we get to that point where if we're always looking future forward and we don't look at the tools that we have in our hands today and shape and refine them, then we're going to miss out on what Larry Lucchino, the old Red Sox owner,
Yes.
and several other owners figured out, which was when you build these new baseball parks, what you do is you take the best of the old and you bring it into the future.
That's exactly
right?
it, isn't it?
So the
Look
Red
back.
Sox,
Look back
look
to
at
the
Fenway Park, look at Yankee Stadium. Look at all the things that make those parks successful and bring them into the future with a new design. And that's exactly what they did, and that evolved things. So as I was sitting down, I was thinking about his argument about AI. I was thinking, what are some of the things that I used to do as a teacher, and I kept on going back and back and back, and I was thinking about my favorite times as an elementary school, because I knew I was going to sit with an elementary school teacher.
Right.
And I thought about this. I thought about these two books, and this is My Side of the Mountain,
Love that
and
book.
Where the Red Fern Grows. Right now,
My favorite book.
Oh, see, both of our favorites.
and again,
Yeah.
it's really funny. You talk to just about anybody about their fourth grade year, and most kids today will tell you that this particular book, they either loved it or hated it, right? Because
Right.
it brought them to tears in class,
Yes.
right? But what was magical about these two books was that if you think about it, in 1970s, you know, when these books were being read to us by the teacher in
Right.
class, or by my parents. My dad read this book to me, you know, while I was sitting down listening to things. And, you know, it's just, you think about the magic that created. I would have cut off my thumbs to avoid missing a chapter that was
Isn't
being
it?
read by one of my teachers when she read this book to me in 4th grade.
Right.
I would have done anything on earth to hear the magic of that interaction, that relationship with that teacher, right? And did the movie come out? Of course the movie came out. I hated the movie. I don't know about you.
Yep.
Couldn't
I
stand it,
agree.
right?
Yes.
This came out as couldn't stand it, right?
Right.
But the book and the way she read to us every single day, it was our
Was it
our
snack
end of day.
time? Oh, end of
It was
day.
our end of
Okay.
day. It was the last
Transition.
20 minutes of class, and we would sit there, and
love
she
it.
would, you know, we would earn the ability to listen to it. And it was just that way of engaging with that teacher. And I started to reminisce about it and think about it and said, what's the best part of this that we need to encourage our teachers, but also our parents to start thinking about? And it's like, you know, I think about my own daughter. You know, she's graduating this year from Endicott. She's going to be a nurse, you know, successful,
yes.
you know, and I remember reading to her. Right, and reading with Skullduggery Pleasant, you know, I'd make up the voices along the way, and you know, she
Totally
loved
see
it,
that.
right? And
Love it.
but we read together and we talked
Yes.
together, and there are just so many things that in our busy society, our busy lives, our
Right.
futuristic, forward-thinking
Yes.
lives. Now, you know, it's the iPhone. It's we sit down and you
know, I
plug them
know.
in on the TV or the game or whatever it is, and kids don't even have dinner with their parents anymore,
That's right.
But I just want people to think back, and I know it's kind of like a golden age kind of thing.
No, it's
But
wonderful.
with all this technology that we have, and with all these things that are changing the future of how we learn, don't forget about the golden age. Don't think about some of those things, because you know what? This book inspired me to be a fisherman. It inspired me to be a hunter. It inspired me to
Yes.
do woodcraft and blacksmithing. I was doing blacksmithing courses 3 years ago because of this book.
Isn't that
right?
crazy? Yeah,
And
I
this
love it.
book, you know, if
I know, I know.
you know, when we started thinking about it,
About it.
you know, think about gender stereotyping and the way
Yes.
that you know, young men are being trained, you know, by society today to look at themselves. I can remember sitting in 4th grade class looking at, you know, my buddy next to me as, you know, old Dan and little Ann, you know, weren't going to make it. Oh,
I
sorry,
know.
spoiler alert if you didn't
I know.
But, you know, and looking at each other going,
Yeah.
trying to hold on,
I'm not
you know?
crying. I'm not
And it was
crying.
okay.
There's dust
you
in
know?
the air. Yep.
Right,
It was.
right,
It
right,
was.
yeah.
But you know, being in touch with who you are as a person and as a young male growing up, one of the toughest parts, all the research is saying right now, kids in elementary and middle school, boys, there's only 10% of our educational staff are males. 10%. That's
Is it that
that's the
low?
national average.
Yeah,
Think about that.
That's, I didn't realize it was that low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And the
we-
number gets lower when you go look at elementary levels. So it's predominantly
does,
the
doesn't it?
upper
Yes,
elementary to
yes,
middle school kind of
yes.
thing.
Yep,
Right.
10% of our teaching staff at the elementary and middle school, that's where we see it. But think about it, if the number one thing that we know, one of the biggest factors that makes a difference in our ability to connect with kids and get them to learn is relationship building.
Right.
And we approach that problem in very different ways as both male and female. It happens,
Right,
and we know it
right.
does. Research shows it. You wonder why a lot of males, young males, boys in schools disconnect from the learning experience.
Yes.
We need to build our relationships.
That's very true.
And I think it starts with some of these things. It's
Okay,
about
hand us those
seeing them.
books. Come
Yes,
here.
ma'am.
Okay, so while we're speaking, you put that one up and I'll put this one
Okay.
up. Our recommendations, right?
100%.
To-
And
yeah,
I will
to
tell
read
you
at
that
home.
with this book has some pretty amazing memories for me. I
Yes.
remember being in elementary school reading it and using this book to convince my parents that I needed a dog. Because every boy, as it was said, every boy needs a dog.
Yes.
But then also I will tell you that as a middle 20-something young man, cutting down my first tree with an axe when I owned property.
Right, right.
And being proud, remembering where the dad had said every boy needs to cut down a tree if you want it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And getting those things going. And so it's just the connection to literature.
Absolutely.
But it was interesting because I think I had some of the most profound conversations with my father about adulthood, what is, about responsibility and things of that nature, because I found out when I was a young kid I wasn't responsible enough to be able to have a dog, and which now as an adult and have multiple dogs. But you always think back to things like this,
Right.
the importance of those connections,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. And this is just the opening salvo of where things
Right.
go. But we really see research, when we talk about research, that a kid's ability for positive educational outcomes, a lot of it is how many words are spoken to a kid through it in a day. or in a month. And it's not spoken at them through a tablet or through
Right,
technology,
right,
but through that
right,
human
through that.
interaction connection. And so upping those
Oh, my
those
God,
words.
yeah.
If you don't know what to say, grab a book.
Grab a book and
to your
read.
kid.
Exactly. So, new grandmother, as you know, not that I talk about a lot, I show you pictures every time I come in.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
Love
but
it,
what they
love it.
say is now the most recent research is saying do not expose that child to any screen time, any screen until they're after 3 years old.
Yes.
And even then, just keep reading, keep engaging, keep playing, keep word games going.
I can't disagree with a doctor who's telling you to do this or a psychiatrist to do
Right.
this. Here's what I'll tell you though.
Okay.
Find the balance. You know what I mean? As a
Okay.
parent, and fight.
Yeah.
There's so many benefits to being able to watch a movie together with your child and talk about it afterward. It's the human to human interaction that's
Interaction, right.
disappearing.
In other words, don't
John and
put-
I were over at the high school the other day, and we were helping out. There was you may not have heard this, a lot of flu, a lot of sickness. So we were covering some tables at the lunchtime. He likes to make fun of me because I was talking to some of the kids and they couldn't get a word in edgewise and eat, right?
It was just it was outside
love
looking
it.
in, outside looking. But in a nutshell, we volunteered to do lunch duty at the high school
Okay.
to help out. So
Oh,
that's
that's
what we're
wonderful.
talking about.
But when I sat down and I looked around, I got to tell you, even though there's a cell phone initiative that's in our schools and our high
Right.
school right now to reduce the
Yeah.
time that our kids have access to cell phones, every single table, it was like they were all at the tables looking at their eating their
wow.
lunches and looking in
Right.
their cell phones because
Oh, gosh.
this is their social interaction
Yes.
world, and they see nothing wrong with that experience.
You got a table of people sitting as close as we are, 8 to 10 kids,
And they're-
nobody interacted. No words were being spoken
No one
to
was
anybody.
talking about the upcoming dances or
Yeah,
the football
nothing.
games or their class or teachers.
They will
None of
tell you that they're talking to each other.
But they're
Right.
through their
texting to each
devices,
other,
but they're
not
texting
Yeah.
and doing
I-
it.
I-
It's just we need to engage with each other, and these are the ticket.
Oh, I
He's a
love
little
it.
excited,
I
as
am
you could
so
tell.
glad,
Just a
though.
little
what a
excited
great
on this one,
message
but
today.
but it's a
old
great,
school, right?
old school, new school. We're not
Right.
not embracing the modern technologies, but we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater
Right.
because literature is important. Those conversations are important. Exploring and seeing
Oh,
these great
absolutely.
use of your imagination is important. And I will tell you that as a grandfather, my 7-year-old grandson, you're like, what can he do? My grandson can draw for 10 hours. You just
and
leave-
amazingly
and
well.
does a great job with it.
It's amazing.
But it's because we purposely worked on
And
fostering
encouraged.
those things.
Got it.
So
Okay.
giving those opportunities back.
Perfect. So when Michael's coming in, I don't have to fear that we're going to be talking about AI every time.
No, not every time.
But it's also a relief to know that the old school and new school will combine.
Mm-hmm.
That you're taking what was important because that was the best part of childhood
And
for
it
me.
does seamlessly. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have. They're not mutually exclusive. You
Right.
you can have both.
I mean, we talked about it when we talked about AI. What about after the opportunity to listen to your teacher read you a chapter? What about taking some AI and having them develop a picture using AI that through
Right.
description generates an image that they self-create through AI that reflects exactly what they just heard the teacher speak to? I mean, there's ways to blend the old and the new.
You are absolutely the best part of our shows, isn't he? It's so wonderful to
Telling
have you come in. We
and
appreciate
I
that.
get the beauty of this
Every day.
Every day. I
Every
get
day.
the
The
access to
energy
this.
and the ideas.
100%.
So unfortunately, we're getting the message.
Got to wrap it up,
Wrap
but
it
we'll
up.
have him back again.
Yeah,
So thank you
Michael.
again.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Now, don't go away because I'm going to be grilling him.
Oh,
Our
geez.
question is coming to us from Wilmot,
Yes.
and it's Ask the Superintendent segment. Stay with us.
Our favorite time.